Thanks, Amanda. Welcome to those who joined us. I am Heidi Schellinger, and I am the Director of Student Services at Indiana Connections Academy and Indiana Connections Career Academy. I did want to note, I know if any of you that joined us feel like me, you feel a little chaotic and crazy, and it's a busy time of year, either wrapping up a semester or kicking one off. So thank you for taking the time. I hope that you are able to gain a tidbit of information or a resource, or even if it's just connecting with one of us and getting contact information so we can help you along your path or your way through comprehensive school counseling. So thank you so much for joining us. On the first slide, and we'll get the slide deck into the chat, but in the slide deck, you're going to see the group of us, we actually presented back in October. And so there's a link to that professional development that you can watch at any time, the recording. And then I struggle with doing any presentation without a tiny agenda. So even though today is a Q&A, just wanted to give you a little outline of what it was going to look like. So we will do panelist introductions. We will have kind of a prescribed panel time, so where I'm asking very specific questions to our panel. And then we will have open Q&A. So maybe you came to this with some questions, or maybe as some of our panelists are speaking, you think of some questions. If you would like to throw those questions in the Q&A feature on Zoom, feel free to. We might answer them live right in real time. We might wait till the end for that open time, but either way, if you want to make sure not to forget and want to throw them in there, you're more than welcome to. Also feel free to come off mute when we open it up to kind of the open share time. And then we also have a few resources to share with you. So you can go ahead to the next slide. Yep. We can go ahead, and I already introduced myself, so I will turn it over to Laura to introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Heidi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Laura Butgereit. I'm the coordinator for college and career readiness, school counseling, and family engagement in Warren Township. We are on the east side of Indianapolis, about 11,000 students. We have 38 school counselors, and our average caseload is about 326 students per counselor. I am in a district role, and this has been the 5th year for me in this position. And we are implementing Carrying the Torch in all of our schools this year. So I'm excited to be here with you all today, and look forward to hearing from everybody. Stephanie, I think you're up.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stephanie Crandell. I'm the Director of Student Support Services for the Evansville-Vanderburgh School Corporation. We have 41 schools and 58 school counselors. I'm in a supportive role for school counseling as well as Director of Student Support Services for EVSC. We've been doing comprehensive school counseling for approximately 7 years, began with the Lilly Grant and then now continued with the IDOE Comprehensive School Counseling Grant. So I'm excited to be here and share with you today.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jen Dodson. I am the district lead school counselor for Washington Township Schools. Washington Township is on the north side of Indianapolis. We have just under 11,000 students as well. And we have 27 school counselors. And we recently, last year, received the IDOE Comprehensive School Counseling Grant as well, and have been in a slow phase in of comprehensive school counseling over the last 3 years. And so excited to share about our journey and connect with other leaders as well today.
And I don't know if Mary made it on. She was having some tech difficulties. Mary will be joining us hopefully at some point. She is a school counselor at Nicholson Elementary School. So we can go ahead and jump into our questions. Jen, if you could start us off with what are the most important steps to include when starting the journey to comprehensive school counseling?
Awesome. Thank you. I actually saw Mary just popped in. I see your face there, Mary. Did you want to, before I dig into that first question? Uh-oh, I see now. Maybe there's not. Mary, did you want to do a quick introduction?
I think she might still be trying to connect to audio is what I'm
Okay,
seeing.
that's okay. We're nothing as school counselors. We're nothing if not flexible. So I'm happy to dig into our first question. Mary, you there? Okay, I think I'm just going to keep on rolling with this question, and then hopefully by the time it's time for Mary to go and kick us off with the question, she'll have the technical issues sorted out. So Heidi, you had asked, what are the most important steps to include when you're starting the journey into comprehensive school counseling? And I will just kind of kick us off. I'm in my third year overseeing school counseling in Washington Township. And when I first started in my position, I was charged with implementing comprehensive school counseling district-wide in our secondary schools. At the time, we only had secondary school counselors. So basically in our middle schools and high school. And so I really was starting from scratch. And at that time, I was really stuck with where to start. It seemed like such a big undertaking, and I was having a really hard time finding a manual of how to break it down and how to make it work in a large school district. So here's what I would say. I would say that you have to start with why. And you have to get buy-in. I know sometimes we don't love that word buy-in, but I think it's important to have people who understand the rationale for why you're doing comprehensive school counseling. And so for me, it was working alongside school counselors, building admin, district administrators, and really linking the work to our district strategic plan. I think when I was able to talk about how comprehensive school counseling fit into the district strategic plan and aligned with the goals that we had for the district, then that started clicking with a lot of leaders. And so I think that is a great place to start. I also think it's really important to identify champions of the work within your space. So it's collaborating early, it's collaborating often. Obviously, you need to find champions of the work in the school counseling world, so your actual school counselors. But I think building leaders who are on board and understanding and championing the work and prioritizing the work, other district leaders. And then I think also about those other ancillary roles. So for me, we have somebody who oversees our school social workers. And so collaborating with her, talking to the people who are working in the spaces of DEI, the space of SEL, MTSS, college and career readiness. So connecting with people in those spaces was really important for them to see how some of the work of comprehensive school counseling would fit in with their work. The next thing I would say would be chunking it. So I started by identifying a few non-negotiables. After we understood the rationale, we started small. And so in my district, we started with our vision and mission statements and really taking time to set the vision and the mission for the work so that we were all on the same page. And then we also started right off the bat with the annual administrator school counselor conference. That was, I think, a really great way to kick things off. It made sure that the administrator was at the table alongside the school counselor, hearing what the school counselor's needs were, understanding how their goals were aligned with the school improvement plan. And then
Jen, could I interrupt you really quick? Can you,
Yeah.
in case there's anyone on that doesn't know, can you tell any more about that conference, where, when, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
where they?
So that's an element of the ASCA model. And so there are lots of resources, and I know in our resource document we're going to share with you later, there's a template for that conference that is within those resources that we'll share. But that's basically a conference at the beginning of the school year. We normally say it's within the first month to 6 weeks of the school year, that after reviewing your school's data, and when we're thinking about data, we're thinking about attendance data, behavior data, academic data, we are developing some SMART goals related to the school counseling program in the school. And at that conference, really processing through that. It's not just a conference where you're sitting down and telling your administrator what you're doing, but it's very interactive and collaborative. And you really set the stage for the work that's going to happen over the course of the year. And so for us, that was a great way, and I love a system and I love a form. And so we used a modified version of the Ask a template for that, that each team in each building, or our high school has 4 teams, they do grade level teams. But they worked on developing those goals as a part of that conference at the beginning of the year. The other thing that we did early on was really work on some shared annual calendars. And so that's another element of the ASCA model that I think is a little bit more low-hanging fruit. And for us, we started off smaller with those, and we had like a morning work session where we all got in grade level teams. And the way we do them currently is we have grade level annual calendars, partially because in our secondary spaces, our school counselors do loop with students. And so, for example, if I'm going to be a freshman counselor next year, I would have had seniors last year. It's been a while since I've had freshmen. It's helpful to have those grade level calendars, but there's other ways you can do it too. But we started and then we've been adding to them. That's kind of been an ongoing item that it's one of those things a living document, so to speak. So those were the things that we started with. And later we've gotten into use of time tracking, some expectations for small groups and classroom lessons. We have 2 schools who are doing carrying the torch. So I think we started small with some really kind of concrete, smaller chunked items. And I think that's the key. If you try to bite off all of it at once, that's really quite an undertaking. And so what worked for us was kind of chunking it, and it's been a slower pace. But I feel like we've seen some benefits out of that. A couple other things I would add, and then I know my counterparts have lots to contribute as well. But from my level at the district side I think it's really important to develop a strategic plan and really map out where you're going. For me, we started with a 3-year plan, and then that plan helped me to figure out PD needs, systems, meeting structures, things like that. And then finally, for us, I actually went to a session at the ASCA conference 2-3 years ago, and Stephanie's Evansville team was there, and they were talking about a gap analysis or a needs assessment. And that really stuck with me. And so I think some things you could consider, which we did do, was to identify your baseline. So where's your starting point to figure out where you need to grow? And the other thing that I would say is really trying to look for some funding streams. Because my position was new, it's not like my position came with a ready to go budget. And so that's been a work in progress, and grants have been our friend. And so that is not the best news. It's not the most fun news to turn into a part-time grant writer, but that's been a really important part, and part of the reason why in our district we've been able to do an elementary school pilot, and we are looking to expand elementary school counseling as well. And I think it's because of some of the funding streams that we found through grants. So those would be kind of my beginning things as we're thinking about like how to dive into the work. Those would be my kind of lived experiences and what I would share.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jen. I know she was very thorough. Do any of the other panelists want to add to that specific question, or are we good to move on? My wait time is bad, but it's looking like you nailed it, Jen. All right, I'm gonna kick it over to Mary, and I know you weren't able to introduce yourself, so maybe you can introduce yourself while answering the question. And the question that I am going to throw to you is how you got buy-in from district and school leadership.
Sorry about that earlier. My desktop, I don't know what happened to it. It kept just going black. And so I quickly was able to get a laptop delivered to me in my office. So anyway, I'm Mary Scheidler, and I am at a small elementary school in Crawfordsville. I have 360 students, and I only have grades 2 and 3. We're a 2-3 building. Previously, I was at a different corporation where I was middle school counselor and been a high school counselor. This is at my previous school, we received the Lilly grant. And so it made it easy to kind of get started in the whole process, because in that situation, the superintendent came to the school counselors. And so he already had buy-in, but then we had to get all the counselors to buy into the process. So that was a little easier. The new school, when I moved to Crawfordsville, one of the things that they wanted me to come to this school was because they were interested, but they didn't know a lot about ramp and carrying the torch, and I'm still in the same county, and so they knew that I had worked with the middle school and then with the high school to go through the process. So the most important thing that I think when you're starting this process is to get buy-in, number one, from your principal. And I know I think that'll be covered later on, but you have to have, I feel like you need to really have your principal on your side. And maybe, I don't know, if they don't know a lot about it. When I started at Crawfordsville, the principal knew absolutely nothing about the process. And so I educated the principal, and then from there, contacted the superintendent and our curriculum director to set up a meeting so I could talk to them about the program. And so to prepare for that meeting, I really wanted to go into that knowing, everything prepared and being very organized, because I know how busy they are. And so I put together all my data. I put together a quick sheet just about like what I do at the elementary. And then I had information about, our standards and carrying the torch and the role of a school counselor. And I sent that information over earlier to the superintendent before our meeting so that they could look at it. I don't know if they looked at it beforehand. I really don't think they did, but they act like they did. And then I just went through all the steps, what my plan was, what I wanted to do. And I really focused on how to improve student learning and behavioral outcomes. And I knew one of the things that I thought, if I went into the meeting knowing that they had some issues and maybe it would be something that I could help with, that maybe that would make them a little more interested. And one of the things is they've had real issues with attendance. And so I kind of use that as, this is something that school counselors can do to help with attendance. And so that kind of got their attention. And then I kind of went through everything. I had, Jen had talked about having a calendar. I think that was really important. They like to see what I was doing. And I showed them how I spend my time during the day. And I think that's really important, because I think that people don't understand what school counselors do. And then in this building, then, it was, well, they don't have students, so maybe they could cover a class today, or maybe they could, can you do lunchroom duty today, and cover the second half of someone, that has to leave. And so by me able to show them exactly what I do, and having that data, like, this is what, my pre and post test show. And then I had my goals. And the other thing that they really liked was the advisory council. And I'm in a small rural town. And so when I put together my advisory council, I had some heavy hitters on that committee. And that really grabbed the superintendent's attention, because he saw that there were people from the health department, and someone from from the mayor's office, and some parents that are influential in the county. And so he was real interested in that, and how that meeting would go, and what the advisory council can do for you. And so I have been able to, when I met last year, they did let me go through the process. So we finished 1 year, and I try to keep up with them to let them know what I'm doing with my principal, and then also with the superintendent. And when I had my advisory council this fall, I made sure they knew what I was doing, and that they were, like before the meeting happened, so that they knew, what my goals are. And what I'm doing at Nicholson. I will tell you that I'm the only counselor in our corporation that's going through the process. And I did just last week, the superintendent came by my office and asked to talk to me and said, hey, what do you think? Do you think we could get the other counselors maybe on board? And that was the first time in a year and a half that I really had, thinking, oh, maybe they do like what I do, or maybe they do think this is important. And so I was really excited about that. So I think if you just stay on it and, if you can show the information and show what you're doing, I think that's really important. I also met with the teachers and asked if any teachers wanted to be on my committee or be on my council. And so, just so it wasn't just me, since I'm the only counselor in the building. So I had other people that know, what I'm doing and what school counselors can do.
Thank you so much, Mary. I got the chills when you said that, told the story about the superintendent stopping by your office. I love that. And definitely shows what you are doing and how much he appreciates and sees it. So that's awesome. For anyone that might be curious, Mary, do you mind expanding on how you put together your advisory council, like the steps you took to gather those people or get them on board?
Yeah, I love my advisory council, and it was actually my favorite thing at my previous school, and so I was really excited to put that group together here. The very first thing that I do is I kind of just looked at my school, and I looked at my county, and I looked at people that care about kids or that care about our community, and then I also looked at my parents to see if there were any parents that were in those positions that might be interested in being more involved in our school. And so I sent out letters and made phone calls, and I tried to get people from different areas. Like I had someone faith-based, I had a county commissioner, someone from our youth service bureau that's real involved, and someone that's through our West Central cooperative, just all kinds of just people that I knew would be involved, that would be interested in being involved. And I just asked, and I asked 20 people, knowing that not everyone's going to say yes. And I have found just in my last, several years of doing this, that I personally think it's for our small schools that it's better to have. I kind of like having a committee that has maybe like 10 people on it, maybe 10 to 13 that are real active and involved, and they come to the meetings. And then I have some others that say that they're on the committee, but they don't ever come to a meeting. But I know that they're still interested and they want to support. So I always make sure I send that information out, to them, so they know what I'm doing at Nicholson.
Great. Thank you, Mary, so much. Any other panelists want to add to that specific question? Okay, I am going to kick it over to Amanda, who I also realized didn't get to do an intro, so you can do a quick intro as well. And the question for you is going to be, how did you get buy-in from the actual school counselors?
Okay, great question. Hello, my name is Amanda Callahan, and I coordinate Counselor Connect. So I'm kind of the host of today's session here in the background, letting most of the experts here in the field answer the majority of the questions. But with this one, I have a little bit of experience. I worked with an organization a few years back, and they were working with 7 school districts in northern Indiana on comprehensive school counseling, kind of over a 3-year period of time. They had hatching results coming in. It was through the Lilly Grant, which I know has been mentioned a couple of other times by some other presenters today. But I think one of the things that the organization did that I thought was key was, before they even started the process, they gathered all of the counselors together from the whole district. Well, in that scenario, it was 7 districts, but looking at just a single district, gathering all the counselors from that one district, including them in those initial conversations, so that they are a part of it. They're helping to make the decisions. They're not just being told, we're going to go through carrying the torch without allowing them any kind of feedback or getting that buy-in. But also, I think important is kind of maybe an education piece in the beginning. Not all counselors are completely familiar with what is comprehensive school counseling, what is the national framework, what are the benefits of creating a comprehensive program, maybe sharing success stories from other counselors. I think we've all heard of some scenarios where counselors have been given more counselors as a result of being data driven. Maybe they've had some fair share duties taken off their plates after being able to share with stakeholders, school board, superintendents, principals, etc., that this is the work that we do. Here's the data to show our impact. So sharing that first, educating first, bringing them into those initial conversations about the importance of comprehensive counseling, asking them what they want to see happen with their programs. In an ideal world, what does your program look like? So also allowing them to kind of dream about what that could look like. And then taking kind of those necessary baby steps moving forward. But again, just let you know that this really is about being more proactive, being more preventative, putting out less fires and doing less random acts of guidance, being allowed more time to focus on tier 1 with all of your students, more direct service. So educating on that, including them in those initial conversations. Also sharing that in an ideal world, your district is going through the process together so that you have each other. You can collaborate throughout the, all of the process of creating that comprehensive program. I think that's really important too. Having those other elementary counselors to, bounce ideas off of is really is a big thing too, so that you're not just doing it alone. It could make things easier to go through it with your other counselors in your district together. Anything else? Anybody have any other things to add or anything you've done with your counselors to get that buy-in?
So I would just say from Evansville's perspective, we're really large. And so sometimes people say it's so difficult to move, a small corporation versus a large corporation, but I would say it's the same. I mean, whether you're small or large, it's still very difficult to move and to get the buy-in from all involved. And one of the things that you mentioned that really stuck out to me was collaborating with other school counselors in the district. So one of the things that we have done in our district is counselor professional learning communities and then a coaching model as well. And so you may not have a district person that can provide coaching support, but you can get with other counselors, as Amanda has said, and create that PLC. Now in the virtual world space, we can do that. So you could have 2 counselors in a district and you schedule that PLC time. So you can talk about, are you doing your admin conference? Have you done yours? How did it go? You can talk about those things. And we do all that in our PLC space and in our coaching space. And so in our coaching space, which I'll talk about later, we also can look at the data and hold people accountable. So I just wanted to lift that because that is key, because doing it alone, it's going to be much more difficult. And then you have thought partners along the process.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that we started doing counselor PLCs. We started that in Crawfordsville and we put those on the calendar for once a month, and when we keep those. So we always, we always have that meeting, and I always just think like I'm trying to work with baby steps to try to get the other counselors maybe interested in showing them, because at first they were like, why are you doing all this? It just seems like so much extra work. And so I try to show them as I go through the process, that it's actually not that much work, and they help you through this, but this is what I'm able to do because of this. And, I was showing them when I was tracking my time, how I was like spending too much time in certain areas, and that because I tracked my time for that 2 weeks, I was able to kind of look at how I do things. And so that kind of got them thinking, maybe that's something that we can look at as well. So I'm still the only one, and hopefully someone else will want to join with it. But I do think that PLC is super important.
Thank you both so much. I think a piece that stuck out to me, and Amanda, I think it was you that shared the education piece. I was at a training recently where they discussed that the counselors that we work with all probably went to grad school at a different time, all have had different experiences in various schools, or maybe, one person has been here since that school started, but someone else is in year 2, someone else is in year 5. So that really stuck with me. That education piece is so important to get everyone on the same page with updated and best practice. So appreciated that comment. Laura, I'm going to kick it over to you. And can you answer, what was your biggest barrier to implementation and how did you work through that?
Thanks, Heidi. So it's been interesting and knowing these ladies and listening to their stories. As you've heard, many schools started with their champions and that. And so if you can envision, we took 38 school counselors and we held hands and all jumped in the deep end of the pool all at once. You've heard through grant funding, we've had lots of individual conversations about moving toward a comprehensive program in the 4 years leading up to this. But through the opportunity with the comprehensive school counseling grant and with some other things that align, we just went 100% all in. So we've learned a lot from that. I will tell you some of the barriers have been just that feeling a bit overwhelmed. And the things that we learned in this process, I guess the key things that I would say would be having support and having someone that has gone through the process. So we've been lucky enough to have Sam Vidal with CIESC, who was a wealth of knowledge and support for our entire team. So to be honest, I don't know that we would have been nearly as successful as we've been without that expert person that has that experience, because no one in our district had done this before, either through Gold Star in the past or carrying the torch. And like Heidi said, we have counselors that have been school counselors for 30 plus years and counselors that graduated in May of 2022, right, from their graduate program. So having that expertise and having someone that can walk alongside you and help you anticipate what's going to happen and give you feedback for that has been priceless. The other thing that I felt was helpful with a larger district is we identified in buildings that had more than one school counselor, a building lead for the process. So at our high school and our intermediate schools, we had a lead counselor that took on the role of making sure everyone was kind of doing their responsibilities, whether that was the use of time, helping organize those advisory council, administrative conferences, and that. And then I also identified a grade level band district lead position. And through the grant, I was able to provide some stipends for that. So that alleviated all of that responsibility coming and all of it coming from me at the district level. So we had an elementary, an intermediate, middle, and a high school district lead. And so they were the ones that participated in some professional development up front, and then they took that back to their grade level teams and could help facilitate that. So I would say those two things have been very helpful from the district level of implementation, is having some other leaders within the district. I would say having designated work sessions. There are certain parts of the process that are a little more time consuming than others, especially when you're looking at data, you're setting your goals, you're building your calendar, as some of the other counselors have referred to. Whether you designate some time in the summer or throughout the school year, we found identifying times that we could pull counselors to work together. And for us, it helped to get them out of the building to have some just dedicated time to work on their data, their goals, their program, their curriculum, their lesson writing, and those things. I want to reiterate what everyone else has said about the advisory council. Throughout all of our schools, that feedback has been some of the most impactful activities and events that have taken place. That educating, just even within your own district, I think you'll find how many people really do not understand what we do. And just this process allows us to continually educate and advocate for our role. And as you gather that data and that use of time, and you can see the impact of small groups or classroom lessons, you have that evidence and that kind of leverage to show why it's important to have us in those places in the building and serving students in ways that are most impactful. I would say now that we started in June, so we are now, I think my counselors would say, we are moving from them commiserating to collaborating. So they are excited to begin having conversations as I go to my buildings. I'm hearing conversations that did not take place in the past. So that's a real celebration for me as they talk about the evidence that they're able to show their principals, that they're able to advocate. The data has helped us have conversations with our middle school principals about getting radios out of the hands of our school counselors. And that has been something we've been trying to do for several years, even before I moved into this role. So those are the biggest things that I would say have been how we've tackled that. You know, in hindsight, I don't know if we would do it the same way, but to, I think, Stephanie and Mary's point, that collaboration with all of us going through it together has, you know, kind of brought us all together as we've, some would say, survived this process. But as the person being literally in the midst of it, just thrilled to see, just in the short time that we've been doing this, how powerful the data that we're going to have just at the end of our first year. And so I'm excited to see, like, where Evansville is several years down the road, that just the impact that we're going to be able to have and the leverage we'll be able to use to advocate for our roles and sustain the program. The last thing I think I would share is one of the things that I was really intentional about, because as many have mentioned, the grant funding is often the what kickstarts some of these processes. And it was really important for me to reiterate to my counselors that we're not doing this because of the grant. We are not serving a grant. The grant provided us the opportunity to start, but we are serving the purpose of our work. And so I tried to be very intentional about repeating that and letting them know this is not a one and done. This is not a, we're going to do this, check this off our list and go back, that this really is, we're creating something that we plan to sustain long term. So I think that message has been really key in keeping everyone focused on that long term and the why.
Thank you so much, Laura. Just want to add in, I would hope it goes without saying, but do want to state it. I know Laura mentioned having a mentor or someone to like come alongside and help support you. We're going to share contact info at some point, and I think we would be a great group if you heard that. And that sounds great, but you have no idea where to start or who to get connected with, or all your other local schools are maybe different sizes. Don't hesitate to reach out. The group of us that are on today are at very different places in the process. So my school just started intentional work on this in the fall. I know we have some people that are a few years in, other people that are lots of years in. So if you heard that and are interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. We want to help. All right. I am now going to kick it over to Stephanie. Can you share what data you use to assess the effectiveness of comprehensive school counseling implementation?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So whether you're brand new or you're years in, as you all know, there are always going to be barriers. There are always going to be things that have to be tweaked, and we have to continue to be very intentional. And so with that being said, as the theme today has been to educate and advocate, you cannot do that without data. So data does speak, as we know. So that was a real shift in our district, because we are a district driven by data, but many of our school counselors were not using data in the appropriate ways that they should. Were they using it every day? Yes. Were they looking at data? Yes, but not using it intentionally. So I'll start from the beginning, and Jen had mentioned we did a gap analysis. And as Laura mentioned, you don't have to have money to do this. And when we present, we always say, it doesn't take money. You look at the chunks that you can do, and you start small, and you look at what can be sustainable. And different than Laura, and like we've mentioned, we're all different than Laura. We started small, much like Jen, and we took chunks. We did a gap analysis to see just where we were. With 58 counselors, you had some counselors doing some phenomenal things, and they were already doing comprehensive school counseling all along. And then you had some others who were doing no comprehensive school counseling. So we had to start with a gap analysis. And with the Lilly funding, we were able to have a consulting group help us with that. But you could do that on your own with the Google form very simply. And we use that a lot now as we look at data. We use survey data. We create things for folks to use for data. So in the beginning, we started with an Ask a modified rubric that we created, much like Jen is talking about. What are the focus areas that we wanted to start with? And we were very similar to Jen's school corporation. We started making sure that we had a vision and mission. And doing that, we didn't say, just do your vision and mission. We had PD around that. We worked together as teams, and we wrote out our vision and our mission statements. Admin conference, we had PD around that through our PLCs. So each area that we assessed, then we would go out and do our visits in the schools and then assess where they were. So it wasn't I got you. It was working with them. Okay, if you haven't been able to do this admin conference, why? What are the barriers? How can we help you with that? So whether you have a district person to do that, or you're just a group of counselors in the district working together, how can you address those big buckets in those ways? The other piece of data later down the line, we develop curriculum, and we'll be presenting next month. I have a team that's going to be presenting on writing curriculum. So we started out with actually volunteers who were doing that. And then through, again, some of our funding, we were able to pay some folks. But I love starting out with not paying, because people are doing it because they want to do it. And that's the key. That's where you get your buy-in, get the champions. And if they want to do it, if they get paid, that's icing on the cake. That's great. And they get a reward for all of that work that they do. So we've been writing curriculum, and now we're just starting to assess that. So there's two things that we're looking at. Are they delivering the tier 1 lessons, the required tier 1 lessons? So we are doing surveys around that to determine if they're able to get in all their lessons. What are their barriers? How can we help in going out and working with their admin, as well as coaching them to work with their admin and teachers? The other piece of that is the pre and post tests that are built into every lesson. We have that. So then we review that data. We also review attendance. That's a focus, as you all know, in every corporation around the United States. So we're heavily involved in the attendance data and providing supports there. And we get that data from our SIS. So attendance, discipline, grades, and then we do a time audit as well as a counselor survey at the end of the year. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of what we're doing right now, but always tweaking, always looking at continuous improvement. Jen had mentioned aligning to your district, whether you're large or small. You have to align to your district continuous improvement and their strategic plan, because that's how you also get that buy-in. And again, the theme today really has been educate, advocate, evaluate. And so we are always encouraging our folks to do that. Get in front of your staff, get in front of your principals, ask to be on a faculty meeting. I tell all my counselors every year, get on that back to school meeting, get on that start of the semester meeting, just to say, I'm the school counselor. I'm here for you. I'm here for the students. This is what comprehensive school counseling looks like. you can give your little elevator speech in 5 minutes. And again, that's educating all, advocating, and then you can share some data as well. We have 5 ramp schools, and we have 3 that are going through carrying the torch. We did not require anyone to do that. It's been a slow process for us because we took a different approach, and we really wanted the counselors to see we've been doing this work for so long, and look, you're already doing it. So let's get the validation and, you know, the accolades for yourself and your school. And so that's been helpful because as we get a few folks on board, then we get more on board, and they say it's getting easier. And now we have carrying the torch, and we're just sharing with each other and growing. So it's a continuous journey and it's hard work.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say that if for anyone that is kind of by themselves, like if it's just you and then find someone to kind of be there with you, whether it's another teacher or maybe someone from your advisory council, or maybe you can get a small group together, or your principal, but find someone that you team up with that can help you through the process, because it's can be challenging to go through. I mean, you have everyone from carrying the torch, and you can call them as much as you want, but it's nice to have someone like that's in your building that you can run something by, or ask their opinion on something. I think that's real important if you're by yourself.
Mary, that's so true. And another thing I would say is that if you are alone, every district has support staff at the district level. And it may not be support for counselors, but don't be afraid. Make sure that you educate yourself. If you're alone or you're a small group, make sure reach out to folks like us on the call that can help you. Make sure and then reach out to somebody in the district and say, this is what comprehensive school counseling looks like. Who do I need to talk to? Start with your admin, but also pull in those district folks because they can definitely help as well.
I would just add also that we're talking about, what data we're using to assess the effectiveness of implementation. By no means am I have that figured out to a T as I'm overseeing district level implementation. I hope to really get that fleshed out in the next year or so, but I will tell you what it has looked like at the school level in some cases. I'll give you an example of one of our middle schools. Last year, they had panorama data that they built their goals around some panorama data. And then we did panorama at the end of the year, and we were able to see an increase based on the really strategic plans, tiers 1 through 3, kind of cohesive tiers 1 through 3, ways that they were addressing those needs that emerged on the panorama survey. And we were able to see that data improve. And so that's just another example. I think ultimately we want to see outcome data changing if we are doing a really great job with implementing comprehensive school counseling. So outcome data can be, those academic, attendance, behavior, outcome data. In the big scheme, that's really what we ultimately want to see, that we're all contributing towards that same work.
Jen, that's a great point. And while you were speaking, I was thinking of, we work with our counselors as they do their administrative conference to look at the SIP plan, which is your school improvement plan. And every school in Indiana is required to have that. So that is really helpful for counselors and admin to talk about, because many of our SIP plans, attendance is on that SIP plan. So how does the counselor align with that SIP, and how do the comprehensive counseling goals align to that SIP? So principals are more willing to buy into. They're like, oh, you're going to be a part of this. Your goals are going to align with our SIP plan, which is going to help their school.
Yep.
Great. Thank you all so much. In the interest of time, Jen, I'm hoping you could be somewhat short with this last one. But the last question we have before we open it up is, what do you wish you would have known about comprehensive school counseling implementation before starting?
So just a couple of things. I think the first for me was that it takes time. And I think that initially I was just, rattling these things off and thinking that everybody was going to come alongside me at my pace. And that just wasn't my reality. And I had a mentor here at Central Office who would say to me, Jen, I love your can-do spirit, but you got to kind of understand it's going to take some time for everybody to come alongside. And so I think just knowing that progress may feel slow sometimes, but then 2.5 years in, here I am, and I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, we've come so far, but at times it felt really slow. So I would say that. I would say also that a small number of, naysayers is normal and nothing that should be derailing you. And I'll be really quick with this, but we, as a part of our grant funding, we have Hatching Results working with our school district this year. And we did a really cool survey with them where everybody self-assessed their level of readiness to really dive into comprehensive school counseling, and then what they thought their colleagues' level of readiness would be. And everybody, not everybody, but the vast majority ranked themselves really high on being ready. But then when they were assessing their peers, their colleagues, they assessed their peers and colleagues as lower, which we all thought was really, really interesting. And so even despite the fact that maybe there are murmurings or, we catch on to some people not being on board, I think maybe more people are ready to come alongside the work than sometimes we think. And then finally, I would just tell myself that we will see progress and there will be fruit. We'll see the fruit of all of the labor, even though it's slow. And those are my kind of quick little ways to wrap us up and open us up to some more questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. I do not see any questions in the Q&A or the chat at this time. Does anybody want to come on their microphone or throw anything in the chat or Q&A? We are happy to answer anything. I know you all have access to the slide deck as well, but I did just throw a quick one-pager with some resources on there to get started. It also has our contact information. Please don't hesitate. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think I can because I get to work with them quite frequently. All of the panelists and myself and Amanda from Counselor Connect want to help you all and want to come alongside if there is a way that we can be helpful, because we know that trickles down to students, right? And that's what we're all here for. Oh, Tiffany, thank you for the kind comment. I'm glad it was helpful.
Heidi, can I just make a quick comment about one of the resources I had added to that document?
Please do, yeah.
I know I mentioned earlier how helpful the Asker resources are, and there's lots of templates and lots there for you. But I would really encourage you to take a look at under Getting Started, the Hatching Results online appendices. So there are these books from Hatching Results that are really great, and they're completely aligned to the ASCA model. But what I like about a lot of these is they have lots of examples. And I know that the school counselors in my district have really found these to be helpful. Sometimes the ASCA templates, it can be very overwhelming to think about what application looks like in your school for all of it. But a lot of these appendices, and you can look at different appendices for different books, but there are actual examples, tangible examples of what the work looks like in the day-to-day that a school might use. And so that's just, even without buying those books, there's a ton of resources in those appendices. So I just wanted to speak to that briefly.
And Amanda, I don't see any questions in the Q&A or the chat if you want to close us out.
All right, thank you all. A lot of great information that was shared today. As Heidi said, if you have any follow-up questions that you think of after the fact, then please reach out to any of the panelists today. I'm sure they would all be more than willing to help and answer your questions. So thanks for attending. If you want to fill out the session evaluation, it is very short, and you will then receive automatically in your email a PGP point for license renewal. So be sure to do that. It also helps us plan for future events. Speaking of, we have several things coming up. I just wanted to share with you. Hatching Results has been mentioned a few times today. Some of their different consultants and presenters are working with some of the different districts in Indiana. They are actually doing a winter learning bundle for us, which includes 4 virtual sessions that will be recorded and then accessible to registrants through December of this year. The first one was delivered this morning, but like I said, it was recorded. So if you missed it, you'll be able to access that later, along with the 3 additional sessions coming up. It is $40 for the bundle of 4 sessions. We are having a free virtual session next week on preparing for National School Counseling Week, if you want to join us for that. And then finally, we're doing a winter book study, which kicks off January 31st and will end sometime in March. So it will take us through the very long wintry months if you want to join us in that. Finally, we're doing a new podcast series, special edition on different social emotional learning strategies. We have a couple of counselor leaders in Indiana who are answering questions submitted from those in the field. So how to better support student social emotional needs and mental wellness. So here you can submit a question if you would like something answered in one of those podcast episodes, but also you can listen to the December episode, and we will be posting a February episode here in the next couple of weeks. Last, this is just contact information for myself and Samantha Vidal. So if you need to reach out with any questions, and then any questions that popped in to the chat while I was closing us down.
No, I don't see anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, panelists. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.